My reaction to Barack Obama's speech tonight, Sunday, December the 6th, 2015. It was a very short speech. It's only about 15 minutes. It came on at 8, went off right about 8:15. I watched it on CBS right after 60 Minutes, right after the first hour. And it was an empty speech, just like I expected. It didn't have much substance. He opened the speech talking about the terrorist attacks in San Bernardino, California, and he said that there were innocent American citizens and immigrants that were affected. Now, in my mind, when you're talking about American citizens and immigrants, you're trying to push your immigration agenda, and you're using a tragedy to do it. You say little things like that. You say words like that at a time like this when you're trying to push an agenda. You know, the liberal left always accuses the right of not letting a tragedy go unwasted, but liberals do the same thing that they accuse conservatives of doing. But they're much more crafty with the way they do things, so it's difficult to call them on it. But me, I see it. You know, to me, it's a dog whistle. But moving on from that, he also brought up the issue of gun control. He said that people that are on a watch list should not be able to have guns. But here's the question. How do you get placed on the watch list? As far as I know, anyone can get put on one of those watch lists, because let's say you say something online that triggers a algorithm in the system that the NSA has. Now all of a sudden you can't fly to Turkey or Syria. You see how easy it is to strip your rights away, to strip your Second Amendment right to bear arms away. People aren't going to like that, especially if he tries to get the legislation passed through Congress. It's not going to be a good thing. And he appealed to Congress in the speech to get the legislation passed, which in my mind is like dry begging. You know, he says, well, if Congress can do it, see, he's already preemptively throwing them under the bus because he knows that it's going to be something that's hard to do. So he puts the onus on them to try to get it done. And then when you have people on the left, they'll be able to attack Congress for not doing it rather than him for not getting it done. And it looks like he is, without flaw, he's a victim in the whole situation that is facing obstructionism, rather than him just doing things that, or proposing things that aren't really realistic and able to be done. So it wasn't really much to the speech. You know, if you follow me on Twitter, I said that he could have tweeted that whole thing from the golf course. There was no need to actually do a White House, Oval Office address on TV. But it was more than just talking about gun grabbing. It was more than talking about immigrants. He also wanted to just push his overall agenda. He talked about radicalism within the Muslim community, but he did not mention radical Islamic terrorism by that exact name. He refuses to do it because he doesn't really want to identify the true problem. It's also why he calls ISIS ISIL. When I was watching CBS, one of the pundits actually picked up on it. They did their own little recap right after, and he said that Obama says ISIL, he does it a lot. Not in a condescending way like I just did, but more in the way of just a casual observation. You know, because what ISIL means is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Levant is basically Israel and the surrounding area. ISIS means the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. It does not include Israel. You see, some people would say that Obama says ISIL to not recognize the existence of Israel. And he also mentioned something about having a coalition of 65 countries. I'm not sure if I said that yet, but he says he wants to have a coalition, or he has a coalition of 65 countries. Now, I'd like to know who's on the coalition. What countries do we have? I mean, do we have Russia or China? Because if we don't, then it doesn't even really matter. You know, who we going to have? Macedonia, Albania, these small podunk countries in Europe that don't have any money, that can't do anything to support us? I mean, really, who's on the coalition? That's what I want to know. We should get that hashtagged and trending. Who's on the coalition? Hashtag who's on the coalition. So I don't have much more to say after that. It was a short speech. Could have been done from the golf course, from Twitter, from his BlackBerry and his pen, like he does everything else. And that's pretty much it. And you know that he's a gun grabber. He wants to put you on the watch list for any arbitrary reason. Take your gun away. He wants to ban assault weapons, whatever that is. Who knows what an assault weapon actually is? Like, what defines an assault weapon? If I take a gun and I shoot you with it, it can be an airsoft gun. But if I assaulted you with a gun, isn't that an assault weapon? What is an assault weapon? He wants to make it more difficult to get an assault weapon, but what does that mean? Does that mean that you won't be able to obtain an assault weapon at all? And if you will be able to attain it, then what will the restrictions be? And criminals don't care about laws. So if you're trying to protect people by putting more laws out there on the books, how does that make any sense? You're not going to affect the criminal element. Just because the guns are purchased legally in the San Bernardino situation doesn't mean that they weren't going to be able to get the guns regardless, because they had bombs in their house. Now, I don't think that bombs were actually legal. You can't get bombs from the store. But if they were legal, they probably would have bought them from the store. But they still had them. So we need to actually address the issues. Radical Islamic terrorism and the lack of and lawlessness that is invading our cities. That's what he should have done. And I think that'll probably be the general consensus from everyone that does a reaction. Every news station that's conservative will probably have that same sort of feel for it. That's all I got to say for this video. If you like this, please comment, rate, share, subscribe. Peace.